I remember from talking to Barry Cunliffe about Professor Barry Cunliffe about these sort of sites where you're relatively near coastal locations which act as sort of entrepôts for trade between Britain and Rome, Gaul, I presume. Is that the case where you are? It's Winterbourne, Kingston, you said, and is there a sense of where's your trading port? Because you're in Dorset, aren't you?
Yes, so we've got Poole Harbour and Hengistbury Head are not that far away. You can actually see Poole Harbour from where we're digging. And Roman material is sort of coming in up until about the 50s BC. And then Julius Caesar sort of trashing his way across Gaul, and all trade just sort of stops. And I think most of our sites go into a bit of a terminal decline then. But up until that point, they are trading and connected with the wider world. And there's a lot of material coming in from France, from Spain, and also from the Mediterranean.
What's the most exciting thing you've found during your dig?
I sound really morbid, but it's the skeletal evidence. I think we find, because we've had a series of cemeteries, and that's very rare for the late Iron Age. So to actually get a viable population where you've got adults and children, and you can look at health, and you look at sort of injuries and lifestyles. And one of the bodies that we recovered looked like it's actually a human sacrifice, because she's an adult who's been placed, dropped headfirst into a pit, and there's lots of cut up bits of animal underneath her. So it's very rare in the Iron Age. We know there is human sacrifice going on, but I don't actually find archaeological evidence for that. So it's a bit of a morbid answer to your question.
Well, I think on an Iron Age site we looked at, there was a certain amount of a discussion about, exactly how did they deal with their dead, because so little human burial material is found on an Iron Age site. And people talk about excarnation, with bodies left on platforms, and therefore the bones are dissipated. But an Iron Age cemetery with that sort of evidence, I think, is incredibly rare.
It is actually, yes. Yeah, I mean, it's very nice to get, because for the rest of Iron Age Britain, we don't really know much about the people. So to get an idea of what they're like, what they're doing, and what they're doing to one another as well is extremely exciting. Yeah, Green Island was different in the sense that we're digging small areas, or small test pits, and the stratigraphy was very deep and undisturbed. So there's no development, there's no ploughing. You've just basically got your Roman Iron Age levels and then soil buildup. So, and I remember it's very, very charcoal rich, because of lots of industrial activity going on. So we're sort of digging in the height of summer in dense tree cover with all this charcoal, sweating, covered in charcoal, and there were ticks everywhere as well, which was an added bit of fun. Come back every evening and try and see which part of your anatomy was being sucked with blood. It was great. But I think it was a bit more relaxed there, as you say, because we had a fairly good idea where things were going to be. It's just trying to interpret them in those relatively small test pits, which is the difficult thing.
And how do you see Green Island in the site, the wider context of sites like that in that area of the coast? Why are they interesting?
Green Island is incredibly interesting because it's obviously there in the mouth of Poole Harbour. And Poole Harbour is one of the largest natural harbours in the world, and it seems to be a major trade focus in the Neolithic, in the Bronze Age, and into the Iron Age. So for centuries, people had been coming there, gathering their resources, and then trading with sort of foreign nations, with foreign traders. So in the early Iron Age, you can see cattle being slaughtered there, you can see iron being worked, you can see pottery being manufactured, you can see salt is being made so they can pack the meat into ships to export it. So it's the real connection point between Britain and the outside world. So even the relatively small bits that we could dig there were just incredibly important. It shows you all those different connections, all those different elements of trade that are otherwise lost. So Green Island is a vital point in that whole harbour. It seems to be controlling a large part of it, and that's where all the trades focus. So, you know, it's an incredible resource, and there's nothing really disturbing it there. So it's all still there and still, you know, ready to be discovered.
And I can't remember, but did we find any trade goods that were coming in on that site? I mean, when you're on those sites, we've had, you know, recent finds in some coastal areas where you can actually see the amphora, the Mediterranean or Gaulish pottery there, which is the material coming in.
Yeah, I don't think we did during the 3 days. We found lots of iron working and shale working, but Eileen Wilkes, who's been working in that area, had brought in some of the material from a dig the previous year, and they've got amphora, and you can see that they're importing wine and olive oil and all those other nice things from the continent are coming across. So I don't think we actually got any during the 3 days, but there's certainly a lot of evidence for that trade activity on the island.
And where do you stand? I think it's always been fascinating, this transition between the Iron Age and the Romans. And in my mind, I have a very sort of simplistic piece of geographical information around this, in the sense that it feels like some of the eastern tribal areas could see Rome coming, had been trading with them for some time, knew that resistance was probably futile, and therefore established a reasonable relationship until the Iron Age revolt by Boudicca. But your particular tribal area, how do you see that as, how did it begin? How did it develop? And how were the British, in a sense, taking advantage of those new skills that the Romans were bringing in? And what were the Romans trying to get from us?
Well, you're right in the sense that a lot of the tribes in the south and east do seem to be trading with Rome and being Roman before they even arrive. But in Dorset and the southwest, there is a real sort of resistance to Roman culture. We don't really see any obvious Roman objects. We don't see settlements changing. In fact, you could argue, looking at most of the areas that we see in Dorset, that if historically you didn't know the Romans were there, you wouldn't see them, because there's no real sudden change. I think the Romans are exploiting the agriculture of the south and west, but they're not, for whatever reason, the people aren't wanting to become Roman. They're not adopting Roman culture. They're not changing their lifestyles.
Even the temptation of a hypercaust and a nice warm floor with a mosaic on it.
Yeah. We don't even see it. I mean, it's right at the very end of the Roman period. You suddenly get a big explosion of villas and hypercaust and bathhouses. But I think even then, it's probably wealthy people coming from another part of the empire into a relatively undeveloped part. But yeah, in Dorset, they do things very differently, and they didn't seem to certainly didn't welcome the Romans with open arms.
And I remember from that Eastern Britain, some of that material as well contains some wonderful Iron Age coins with beautiful horses and things like that on them. Are they trading with money at this point, or is it an exchange of goods, or what's the financial basis for the relationship?
It seems to be mostly an exchange of goods. I mean, whenever we do see coins in the Iron Age, I think they're more propaganda sort of things, you know, a bit of precious metal with the face or a name of a particular leader. They're not really a monetary economy as such. So they're not using coins to buy things, but I think they're using it to gain allegiances and to sort of, you know, pay people or pay mercenaries, that sort of thing. Certainly in Dorset, we get a lot of those coins occurring, but there's no real evidence that there is they're using cash like we do today.